You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we dive beneath the surface to see what's happening with technology in the music industry. I'm your host, Dmitri Vietze, the founder and CEO of Rock Paper Scissors, a PR firm that specializes in music and tech and music tech. And today we're going to take a deep dive into the growing Los Angeles music technology scene with founder, entrepreneur, and university lecturer Dae Bogan. Dae is the founder and CEO of TuneRegistry, a music rights administration platform, and teaches music innovation at UCLA's Herb Alpert School of Music and consults with music tech startups and never seems to sleep. Great to have you on, Dae.
Thanks for having me. I super appreciate it.
Yeah, I've we've started running into each other at different music industry, music tech conferences, and just been super impressed with all that you're doing. And you seem to have your finger on the pulse of a lot of stuff. And LA just keeps coming up. And I thought, let's talk to Dae. He's got to know what's going on. But before we dive into what's going on in LA's music tech scene, I remember seeing on your Facebook page a while back that your move to LA was kind of a cool story. So I'm curious, where'd you come from and why'd you come to LA?
Sure. Well, it's funny looking back, it seems cool because it wasn't cool in the moment. I've been in Los Angeles now for a little over 15 years. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I came here on December 4th, 2003. I've always wanted to come to Los Angeles and pursue the music and entertainment industry as a performer, actually, in the beginning. And over time, I kind of shifted to more the business side. But I came here, on an aggressive pursuit of my goals in my career. I was 18 years old. I was homeless and unemployed. I found one opportunity to get a job that included housing as an assistant to kind of an Emmy award-winning director. And I went for it. Just got a one-way ticket on Southwest Airlines from Cleveland to Burbank Airport. And made the leap, and landed, and just really focused on trying to establish some sense of stability, so that I can from there start building my career. Again, I came out here as an aspiring artist, so that was really the focus when I first came here, is auditioning and trying to find communities of other creators to engage with and try to learn from. I didn't know anything about Los Angeles. I had only been here once before, a few months earlier, for a couple of days to look at colleges, and that was the first time I've been to Los Angeles, and the second time was when I took the one-way trip and came into Burbank. So it's been a really interesting journey, but that was it was a scary moment because I wasn't sure of what I was going to be able to accomplish or how I was going to plant my feet. I didn't have a network here. I didn't know anyone. I had one friend actually who graduated high school 1 year before me who lived in Long Beach. But other than that, I didn't know anyone. Certainly didn't know anyone in the entertainment industry. But I knew I had to try.
Did you have some sleepless nights when you got there thinking, oh, did I make the right move? And
no, I was super anxious because I was super excited. I was happy that I made the move, and I felt that anything that would come my way, I would deal with it and keep moving forward with trying to pursue my career. I also wanted to continue with my academics, so getting into college was important to me as well. The funny story is I applied to UCLA when I was in high school. It was the only college I wanted to go to, and I got rejected twice, actually. And now I teach there, so I always tell that story to my students. But I got rejected. But I eventually did end up going to UCLA. I've learned about a transfer program that I could take at community college, and I did that, and eventually got into UCLA.
That's so cool. So I know this is going to be like a kind of a long answer if we do the whole thing, but let's at least touch on this. How did you get from there to starting TuneRegistry?
So I started managing artists and running my own indie label and publishing company after college. Towards the last year of UCLA, I started a DJ management company because during my college years, I was a club promoter and event producer. And a part of my role was booking DJs, and that led to DJs asking me to manage them. So I formed my DJ management company. And my first job after college was a head of marketing of a retail chain that was a youth-focused retail chain called Chic Shoes. And I pitched to the founder the idea of developing a music division, which I ultimately ended up heading up and building all types of programs with major labels and artists and independent artists, and identifying independent artists that we could promote and use our platform to generate exposure for them. But I ended up managing live acts or artists because I produced a multi-city talent search, and the winners had to win something. And one of the things they won was management with my management company.
So you became a manager to offer it as a prize? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
I was already managing DJs, and we were doing well. I mean, we'd already did a number of music festivals, and we had great relationships. We had brand sponsors and things like that. I also had relationships with major labels, independent labels, brands, and so forth through my work at Chic Shoes. So I was already managing DJs. We had other managers in my management company managing live acts. I just personally wasn't managing live acts. So I got into managing the live acts. I also started an independent label and a publishing company. And while running those three things, a management company, a label, and a publishing company, I learned a lot about the music rights ecosystem from the perspective of the creator and the rights holders, and realized how fragmented the space was, and how challenging it was to keep up with a lot of the things that we had to do to make sure that our music was properly registered. And then I went to grad school at CSUN, California State University, Northridge, to pursue a master's degree in music industry administration, where I focused on copyright administration and music publishing. And that's really where I learned a lot more about the challenges that not only creators, but pretty much everyone in the music ecosystem, from DSPs, digital service providers, to record labels, to publishers, to music rights organizations, to metadata companies, all the challenges that we're facing kind of steered or kind of revolved around metadata and information about music. And I would go to conferences like South by Southwest and listen to panelists talk about these issues of unclaimed royalties and poor metadata. And no one had solutions. What they had was a lot of stories and anecdotes of why it's a problem, but there were very few solutions, especially solutions that were for independent artists and quote unquote long tail artists. So I started thinking about the challenge and how it can be solved from a tech standpoint. And at the time, I had started doing some consulting work with a number of founders of music tech companies, and helping them get their apps and services licensed by music rights organizations and licensing clearance houses. So I went to my contacts at the music rights organizations and asked a bunch of questions in regards to the problems and the challenges that they have, and if there was a solution, what would that look like for them? I took all those different perspectives and put it together into what we now call TuneRegistry, which was trying to create a central platform for music rights holders and artists to manage their metadata, to gather their rights information, and then to streamline the delivery of that information to the many places that it needs to go to. So that's really what the concept was. And I brought together my team members, Jesse Morris, Karen McKee, and Shane Zelinskas, and the four of us developed TuneRegistry and launched it at South by Southwest 2 years after I came up with the idea at South by Southwest. So it was certainly a South by Southwest story, a part of it too.
Will this South by Southwest 2019 be part of this story as well?
It very well may be. We're working on something that we maybe have announced by then.
Gotcha. But you'll be there in Austin?
I would be there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Speaking on the panel.
Gotcha. Great. What's the panel?
I'm not sure of the title now because I know the title changed, and I haven't looked at it in a while. It was about rights and development, kind of development of music rights. So I think we're still sticking to that. but I haven't looked at the final name.
All right, cool. So let's dive into what else is going on in music tech in LA.
Sure.
How would you describe what's been going on there since you got to town and what it's shaping up to be now?
Yeah. So I think LA in the last couple of years has taken music tech more seriously. There's communities outside of Los Angeles that was already doing things in music tech. And what I mean by that is an entire ecosystem of academic pursuits, actual funding, workspace communities, and things like that. So outside of Los Angeles, you have things like 2112 in Chicago and Project Music in Nashville. And I was familiar with both of those organizations and communities, and have spoken with the folks that run that and some of the startups that have participated. But in the last few years, Los Angeles has really come together to look at the future of music in Los Angeles from a tech standpoint, from a legislation standpoint, from a venue standpoint, from a policy standpoint, in terms of how long people can be even stay out to enjoy nightlife, and then we're starting to see more of the established companies participate in innovation in terms of from a financing standpoint. So there's a lot of areas right now that I can actually run down with you that I see. Let's start with academia. So with academia, in Los Angeles, UCLA is one of the largest universities in Southern California, and the Herb Alpert School of Music, where I'm a lecturer, I teach a class on music industry entrepreneurship and innovation. It's a Billboard recognized class. I was mentioned in their 2017 top 15 music business schools. It's a course that I developed after spending many years advising and consulting and mentoring founders of music tech companies, and realizing that a lot of these founders are really smart technologists, but didn't have a lot of experience in the music industry or any experience at all, and would develop companies that would immediately infringe on the copyrights of rights holders, and end up getting sued, or some kind of a deal that's overreaching. So I thought there needs to be a way to start to educate computer science majors that are interested in the music industry on what the challenges are that they'll face if they're developing, trying to develop the next Spotify or the next Shazam or whatever app or tool that they want to develop. So I came up with the idea, and when I started thinking about it, there's a center at UCLA created by Dr. Gigi Johnson called the Center for Music Innovation that I just launched in the Herb Alpert School of Music. And the center was really a hub for different types of projects around innovation and the music industry, and kind of bridging UCLA and the greater music industry. So I pitched the idea to some of the folks at the school and the center, and ultimately came on board as the first innovation fellow at the Center for Music Innovation. And then I worked with Dr. Gigi Johnson to develop a summer academic program called the Music Industry Summer Institute in 2016. And we invited students from all over the country, as well as tech founders. So you didn't have to be a student to take 2 courses that were over the course of 6 weeks. So that was a starting point. And it was a class on music tech startups. So we went over everything from product development and licensing and using APIs and respecting artists and creator rights. It's a really innovative program. I've since scaled up that program to cover more than just music apps, but also innovation in other forms or other sectors of the music industry. So live music and recorded music and artist management and so forth. So now the program that I teach is called Music Industry Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And I do that. I'm currently teaching that class. So the Center for Music Innovation one of the notable projects that's currently happening right now at the center is the Future of Music in LA, which includes a symposium that took place in February, as well as an ongoing interactive map project and this sort of trends survey. The map that they're developing enables you to click on it and learn about music venues and communities across Los Angeles. And the survey is capturing data about music stories and experiences in Los Angeles. And that survey data is going to be gathered to become a part of an aggregate data set used to look for overarching trends in Los Angeles and kind of the future of Los Angeles from the perspective of consumers. On the flip side of that, so that's kind of what's happening in academia. There's other universities that are also looking at music programs and innovation. On the flip side of that, the other kind of category of things happening right now in Los Angeles is in the government. So the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs just produced their first inaugural kind of festival called Composed LA 2019, which was the entire month of February. And the purpose of Compose LA is it's supposed to be a platform to showcase LA's leading contemporary composers, their innovative music artists, dynamic thought leaders, and engaging music spaces. And it occurred throughout February with multiple events. The theme is, what is human, what is race, as an inspiration. And the first edition of the festival included partnerships with everyone from Red Bull Music to UC Irvine and UCLA and the American Composers Forum of Los Angeles and many others. So it's a really interesting way that the city wanted to engage the music industry to understand not only the experiences we're creating or having, but also how can the city participate in making Los Angeles a better music city for businesses and for residents and visitors. So that's kind of what's happening in the kind of the government sector. Let's see, because I took some notes here. Then what I really like is a couple of years ago, I remember having this conversation with Chris Castle and Keith Bernstein, and it was about developing an accelerator specifically to music tech companies because there weren't any at the time. I was being a mentor and advisor to a number of founders of startups that were in accelerators like Mucker Lab and Amplify and another one in the Bay Area, but those startups accelerators were not specific to the music industry. And I was thinking about creating an accelerator with a number of partners around music. And then I met someone at Techstars in Boulder, and they said, "Oh, we're working on an accelerator program in Los Angeles." So right now we have Techstars Music, an accelerator here in Los Angeles, and I think it's great. Its managing director is Bob Moz, and they invest $120,000 in 10 startups to really get them going. They have a 12-week program with mentors and partners, and they have this artist in residence program where they identify emerging or established recording artists and provide connect relationship between the founders and the artists. Another one that just launched is the G Beta Music Tech, which is Capital Music Group's partnership with Generator. Generator produces a number of accelerators across the country. And it's a free accelerator, which is a little different than most. It's a free music tech accelerator, and I'm one of the mentors. And they identify about 6 startups and provide a mentorship and guidance, and they work out of the Capital Music Group and studios here in Hollywood. And I think it's a great way for founders to have conversations with major labels, with artists, with managers around what they're building. And there's 2 companies that come out of there that I really like. One is called Wishing, which is a platform for crowd investing into concerts and tours. And then there's another one called Stereo, which is a kind of a rideshare music app. And they're plugging drivers into this network to promote independent and emerging artists.
Are those companies from LA, or did they come to LA just for the accelerator?
I believe Stereo was already here in LA. Wishing came from Latin America, and they're expanding into United States. And this was, I believe, their first engagement to that end. But there's a number of other startups. Another thing, I guess, and that's a good point that you make, is that the Los Angeles music scene is not a local scene in the sense that everyone is from Los Angeles, right? 'Cause I'm from Ohio. A lot of my colleagues are from all over the country or all over the world. It's certainly a hub with a lot of different perspectives coming from different parts of the world, coming together to develop music or innovation or projects. Or so it's really interesting because there's not a lot of there's actually not a lot of folks who are born and raised in Los Angeles who are engaged. It's really a lot of individuals who've come to Los Angeles from all over.
Right. Definitely. I mean, you have a major city there, and that's cool to see those accelerators taking off. Is the Capital one referred to as Capital 360? I thought I saw that.
Yeah. So the accelerator is called G Beta Music Tech. That's the name of the accelerator. Now, there's also workspaces that are developing here in Los Angeles that are music focused, and that is Capital 360. So Capital Music Group's Capital 360 is a collaborative workspace, and they create events there. They have workshops. They're trying to create a community where technologists and artists and creators and even students can come together and create and explore. So Capital 360 is a workspace, and G Beta Music Tech is their accelerator, which takes place in the workspace. There's also another workspace called the Reto LA, which is actually the Reto from London, which is coming here to LA. And
they're not open yet, right? In LA.
They're not open yet. They're coming downtown, I believe, in the summer or late spring. And it's a collective of artists and creatives and technologists, and working on music projects and business projects. And it's successful in London, and it's coming here to Los Angeles. And I've been talking with them as well as a mentor to work with some of the founders of that will be members of the Rattle. We have also interesting communities. So we have workspaces, we have accelerators, but we also have communities. For example, the Recording Academy has a chapter here in Los Angeles. It's the oldest and largest chapter of the Recording Academy. And we also have a number of kind of informal social groups. I run a group called the SoCal Music Industry Professionals, where we have online networking. And then I also do every 2 months a networking meetup at a different bar or restaurant across greater Los Angeles. So I've done them in Malibu, I've done North Hollywood, I've done Santa Monica, I've done Long Beach, I've done all over Mid-City, and I've done downtown. So it's just a way to bring these communities together in these smaller kind of subset communities. Because some people, if you live on the West Side, you don't often drive downtown, and vice versa. So it's a way for us to kind of come together and see people who you're emailing with, every day throughout the week, and then able to kind of see them in person and meet up. What's also interesting is, we on the west side of Los Angeles, where you have the beach cities, we call this Silicon Beach. So we've always had VCs, venture capitalists, and that community is growing. But I remember back when I was working with a number of accelerators, the idea was that, or the saying was, we don't invest into music tech or music companies because we don't invest into content. Or there was a fear of investing into content companies because of the licensing cannibalizes the revenue. So the traditional VCs, sometimes wouldn't look at a music tech startup. But now we're starting to see VC opportunities that are specific to music industry. So Capital 360 again, they're looking at startups to invest into, and Josh Runsberg and Nicholas Osborne are doing a lot of that work. Um, Warner Music Group has WMG Boost, which invests up to $1 million in early stage, even pre-revenue startups. And I've been able to, introduce a couple of founders to them for consideration, and they have an online process for any founder to be able to submit for consideration. And that recently launched just last year, the WMG Boost. It was just announced recently that Scooter Braun partner with a number of music industry executives like Zach Katz and Sheriff Sinderoff to launch Raised in Space Enterprises, which is a VC that's going to invest anywhere from $500,000 to $5 million in tech startups here in Los Angeles. Well, they don't have to be here in Los Angeles, but Raised in Space Enterprises is based here in Los Angeles. And then still we have Atom Factory, which was created by Troy Carter, and they have a number of investments in music and outside of music that they're working on. And then and then pretty much every major label and some of the agencies have venture activity and investments into startups in some capacity, and some artists. There's a number of artists that are doing investments into startups and ideas. So that's pretty much the landscape.
Man, it's funny. Yeah, you start off with this thing about kind of the schools and some of the government stuff, and then just out of your mouth comes all of these other things as well that are going on in Los Angeles in terms of incubators and VC, and I was noticing. I think one of the things that interests me about Los Angeles, I noticed about 6 months ago, or maybe 8 months ago, there was news that Spotify is opening regional headquarters in the Arts District.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Spotify paying attention. Obviously, they have the content play, and being near Hollywood is a good thing, and also the major labels there. So I don't know. Are you hearing much about Spotify in LA at this point?
No, I haven't, but I know Warner was supposed to be moving their offices from Burbank to downtown. I'm not sure if that's still happening or not, but it's been a while since I heard that.
Thought that maybe um, I'm not sure whether they're going to be in the same complex or whether what's this? I'm looking at Curbed LA. Warner Group announced plans to relocate to the neighborhood from Burbank in 2016, and both food replacement startup Soylent and the USC Roski School of Art and Design are moving into at Mateo along with Spotify. So maybe
Interesting.
that's still in the works. And then Apple Music is putting 128,000 square foot of office and retail space across 4 stories in Culver City. So that's 2 big players there. When I was in LA last, I don't know if you've been there yet, but there's a newish YouTube space in, is it maybe by Playa del
Mhm.
Rey or Playa Vista? It's I think it's a former hangar.
See, there's a lot happening. See, I can't even keep up. There's so much happening.
Yeah, and you mentioned Silicon Beach. I know Facebook has a big
Right.
LA
Google.
place
Yeah.
there. I'm looking at TikTok. I had heard somewhere TikTok has an LA presence. The only thing I could find is that there's 59 job openings in LA by TikTok.
Yeah. So someone a colleague or an acquaintance of mine just became their director of artist relations and music, and they're working on a number of programs to help artists really understand how to how to leverage the community and the platform. I'm still learning more about the rights and royalty issues around
Mhm.
TikTok, and I've had a couple of conversations with some labels and publishers in regards to how they feel about how it's currently operating. But we'll see that unfold, I'm sure, in the coming
Yeah, the
months.
whole social music space is especially intriguing because there's unexpected or new uses of music or compositions, and it's how they get repurposed and so forth. It's super intriguing. Um, I recently came across Arabian Prince from NWA
Mhm.
has some sort of innovation incubator in LA as well.
Yeah, we actually just we met several years ago when I was the VP of Marketing and Strategic Partnerships and the General Manager of Music of Chic. And we met then, and then we reconnected a couple of months ago, and we both spoke on a panel for the House of Blues Foundation. They put together a music kind of innovation program. Yeah, an interesting platform for students, primarily targeting students. And we reconnected then. I know he was talking on the panel about how he transitioned or I guess expanded from the music industry to then learn code and start working on technology and getting into that space. So it's really good to see those kind of examples of being able to bridge the gap between music and technology, not just from a ideation standpoint where you have a lot of kind of business focused people, but actual creators where you're creating music and you're actually creating software. And he's a great example of that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the cool things about LA is you've got the trifecta of Hollywood film and TV, with this growth in technology along Silicon Beach and around the city, and music all coming together in one place. I think just to mention, and this may trigger some other thoughts from you. A few companies that I've seen kind of in the music technology space at conferences and things are Exactuals,
Mm-hmm.
the micropayments company that was bought by is it City National Bank. I think their headquarters is in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Pex.com, a company that does not only stuff with music, but also their main focus is on video, understanding how videos are getting used. And
Well, yeah. If we get started talking about startups, we'll be here for another hour. I mean, you have STEM and Repost Network and Song Trader and TuneRegistry. We're here, and Cobalt and has a space here, and SoCan, and they're doing all types of integrations and investments in technology. So there's a lot happening at the startup
yeah,
level.
AdRev is
AdRev is
there as well.
here. Yeah, there's quite a few. Muzuka is here, which just announced their partnership with Grace Note. Um, yeah, there's a lot of, and I see these founders and executives, quite frequently at the music conferences, like as you do as well. And that's why I put together SoCal Music Industry Professionals, so that kind of between these big conferences, every 2 months, there's sort of a happy hour where we can get together and just catch up.
That's cool. How do people find out about when those events are going on?
I have a meetup page. So if you go to meetup.com and search for SoCal Music Industry Professionals, or type in meetup.com/SCMIP online, then it'll come up.
Cool. And you're doing those every 2 months that you said?
Every 2 months. I've done about 13 so far.
That's great. What's the format?
Super informal. Where I choose a location. Actually, my assistant chooses a location, and we pick a date and a time. Normally, it's a Wednesday between 6 and 9, and we announce it. We have a Facebook group as well. So you're in Southern California, you can join the Facebook group, which is SoCal Music Industry Professionals, and we just hang out and have and network. It's not a formal.
More like a networking reception. There's no presentation or pitches or.
There's no presentation. Very rarely, I have had presentations and some open mics or live performances, but it's very rare. I really want it to be a very organic experience. You come in, you put on the name tag, and grab a beer or whatever, and start meeting people.
So if music tech companies want to come to LA and just tap in, maybe visit, do meetings, whatever, you mentioned some of the things in terms of incubators and stuff. Are there any other meetup types events or any other networks that you would suggest they tap into?
Well, I always recommend that. If you're a music creator, you should join the relevant organizations for creators, like the Recording Academy and your PRO. If you're a songwriter, then you should join a PRO, and the PROs sometimes have local events. So there's a lot of networking happening there. On the business side, kind of like tech founders, there are there's not that many kind of trade organizations for tech founders. We have the Open Music Initiative, which is actually based out of Boston. But there are members here in Los Angeles, and we recently had a Los Angeles member meeting. And that's kind of one way to stay in the know of some of the things that are happening in the tech space, specifically around metadata and interoperability. Again, my group, SoCal Music and Professionals. There's a couple of other groups that are not music specific that are on Meetup that are tech in general. That's one way. There may be a couple of music industry folks in there. But other than that, I mean, there's a number of events that take place throughout the year, like the Muse Expo and the DEW Expo, and there's ways to kind of network. Yeah. So there's a couple of things.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Dae, if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best method? Is it Twitter or Facebook or?
I'm on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram every single day. It's not hard to find me. I'm at Dae Bogan Music pretty much everywhere. So if you type
DAEBOGAN.
Yeah, exactly. DAEBOGAN music.
And I'll tell our listeners, I follow you on some of those platforms, and I find it. You're great about sort of keep bringing people along with your story about what you're up to, where you're going, and you are moving a lot, man. You're very busy and speaking at lots of conferences, running your own startup with co-founders and advising and so forth. So, man, hats off to you, Dae. I think you're killing it, and I'm sure we'll see great things coming from TuneRegistry and other things you're involved with. So thanks so much for joining us, Dae. It's great to have you on for our little LA Music Tech Dive.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And thanks everyone for listening to Music Tectonics. Please, if you enjoy the show, give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, and keep spreading the word. You can sign up for the Music Tectonics email updates at musictectonics.com. We also have a blog there, which will also let you know when the podcasts are up and other blog posts and articles that we're working on. And if you're interested in finding out more about my company, Rock Paper Scissors, a music and technology PR firm, just go to rockpaperscissors.biz. You can reach me through the contact page there. If I could spell my name for you, it's DMITRIVIETZE. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn and everywhere else too. So thanks again. Look forward to hearing from you again soon, Dae, and thanks for listening.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.